Hello folks, Dragonkeeper 96600 here. You might have heard that there is no new Adventure Time episode tonight, but it turns out that that's wrong. There actually was an episode tonight. Apparently the schedule for Adventure Time is now so crazy that not even the people making the show can keep track of it. So yes, Walnuts and Rain aired tonight. It was a really great episode. I really enjoyed this one, and I know I've said that a lot in the past few weeks. A lot, but I mean it. I mean it every time. I really like this one. And this is an episode that I had no idea what it was going to be about going into it, because I didn't even see the synopsis, and apparently the synopsis was released rather late, so yeah, I had no idea. Basically, Finn and Jake both fall through different holes and have very different experiences, and I feel like I always do these reviews assuming that you've seen the episode already, so I don't want to spend too much time explaining the premise. But basically, the big motif about this episode, as I see it, was waiting. And basically, both Finn and Jake, when they fall in the hole, they're in situations where there isn't anything that's immediately obvious to do but wait. Jake, of course, is waiting because he's just falling, and he's either waiting for Finn to find him or waiting for them to land, or it's not really... I don't really remember exactly what they established he's waiting for. He's just kind of waiting. Finn is waiting because at first it was so Jake could find him, but then he's kind of waiting against his will because he's kind of stuck in that spot. But, yeah, so, basically, beyond the fact that both Jake and Finn are waiting for something to happen, not really sure what, just something, the situations that they're in is very different. Finn is in an area, he's in the Kingdom of Huge, that is actually the name, and he's in a place of very extreme material comfort, like food is being shoveled at him all the time, and he's looks like a pretty comfy chair, and it probably smells really great in there, because there's stuff cooking all the time, and he's sitting across from this wooden cuckoo clock, like one of those really fancy ones, and every hour it chimes, and he and the King of Huge, which is a character I really like because I thought he was funny. They just sit and they watch the clock go off every hour, and that's all they do. And that's all the guy wants to do. Like, the King of Huge just wants to sit there and have food thrown at him and watch the clock. And I noticed that, like, the food they get is, like, he's a really big guy. He's, like, I don't know, 30 stories tall, and, like, the food that he gets is, like, Finn-sized portions, even when they're giving it to him. So he must have been sitting there and doing nothing for a really long time to get that big. And he says something about how he thought the clock broke several years back. So it's like, he's been here a while. And, but yeah, Finn's in this area where he's, it's very, what's the word? I don't know. Very indulgent. Whereas Jake is in a place where the guy he's with, 7718, which is another great joke, he's just got the basic essentials. He's got cards, and he has Rain and Walnuts. And like it's like sort of like the weird like foil to how King Huge is always waiting for food to be thrown in his lap. 7718, or 7 for short, is also waiting for food in the sense that, unlike the king, he doesn't know when it's coming. He just has to wait for the Walnuts and Rain, hence the title, to come, and that's when he gets his water and food. And so yeah, he's basically living by on chance. And he's also playing with cards. It's another chance thing. So, So Jake is in a much less opulent area, but in regards to who's happier or more comfortable in their situation, Jake is obviously the most comfortable. First of all, because I think Jake is lazier and he's more okay with waiting for a longer time. Because they set that up in the beginning of this episode where Finn and Jake have had a busy day, and like they both want to get home, but Jake's like, I'm gonna get home and get some sleep. And before he can finish saying the word sleep, Finn interrupts with saying like 5 other things he wants to do. So Jake has more of a laid-back personality. And second of all, because he's with a guy who's 7 is, I think, less bossy than the King of Huge is. And, he and Jake are actually able to talk about other things. And, when, 7 is more willing to listen to Jake, whereas King Huge just wanted someone to talk to. 7 wanted someone to talk with. So, when he says, you could sit here and watch me play Free Cell, and Jake's like, we could play some games together, and 7's like, I forgot you could do that. And, So yeah, so they're actually like having more of a camaraderie than Finn and Jake, who's getting all this comfort, but is having a very one-way kind of relationship with this guy, who also won't let him leave. And Seven wouldn't let Jake leave either, but it was I think it was established that King of Huge was more of selfishness. Also, speaking of Seven and Jake, I love how quickly they became friends. They had a really sweet relationship, and I also like when it shows them falling right before they finally land. They're like, I'm not sure what they're doing. Like, they have skirts made of the cards, and they're like rapping. It's like, I'm not sure what happened to get them to that spot, but I also like how when they start to fall faster, like starts rapping slower. Like, take your socks off. Like that. I thought that was cute. So I was a lot of people, like, the immediate reaction after Adventure Time episodes, an Adventure Time episode airs this season, has been, I don't get it, or I'm not sure what that was about. And I like that we've come to expect that they're about something. Like, every single episode is like this standalone short story thing that gets deeper the more you dissect it. And so, I was thinking what the connecting thread this episode was, and, of course it's waiting, but it occurred to me that, like, if Finn had to get proactive to get himself out of the situation. Like, he came up with this big elaborate plan, which didn't work, but he was doing something, and he was very active, and he was, like, running around and dodging guys and punching guys and breaking ladders and such. Jake did not do anything before Finn. He just waited. And if Finn had waited like Jake had, they wouldn't have gotten rescued, and they'd probably still be sitting there. But, so waiting didn't work out for Finn, but it did work out for Jake. And it's like this weird kind of thing where if one person does something, then everybody else can just wait. And I thought that was kind of a pessimistic thing, like one guy does all the work, but then I thought, Finn didn't really do all the work, did he? Because Jake was the one who punched out King Huge, something that Finn is incapable of doing due to the fact that he is a magical shapeshifter from another dimension. Which, always gets in the way. What it finally occurred to me was, like, the twist of the episode, the reveal, I guess, was that the reason that Seven's parachute has fallen so slowly is because the heat waves from the stove where their King Huge's ranges, where his food ranges are cooking, has been, like, slowing it down. So once Finn turns off the stove, and which was not what he was trying to do, he was mostly just trying to destroy that stupid clock, that's when they started falling. That's when Jake came down and, like, everything. So they were connected together, and, like, it occurred to me, I was thinking about it, it's like, him doing that set off all this chain reaction that brought Jake and Seven to him. It was like clockwork. Like clockwork! Ding, ding, ding! So basically, the cuckoo clock represented the whole situation in miniature with all this interconnected stuff. And, like, just like when the clock chimes on the hour and it sets off this very interesting chain reaction, Finn's action, which also happened, was also set off by the chime of the clock, set off their escape attempt. And I'm not sure, I felt like that was really brilliant, but I'm not sure what that leads to, like, thematic wise. I don't know, but it's fun to think about. A few more bits and jokes I noticed. I like when, like, the king grabs Finn, like, after he already breaks the clock, and it cuts back to them. It's only for a second, but he's got Finn in one hand, and he's got a fork like this in the other hand. It's like, what are you gonna do with that fork, buddy? It was only for a second, but I thought that was hilarious. I think that both Seven and King Huge were voiced by guest stars this episode. I'm not sure, but the voices on them were pretty good. They were pretty funny. Oh, one thing that did occur to me was that when Jake said he wants to go home and sleep, at first I was a little concerned because last week during the diary, Jake didn't look too hot, if you remember. So I was wondering if, like, is Jake getting old? Which seems weird because last we checked, he was, like, permanently 28, and, like, he says that his kids who age to the point where they're 35 are now older than him, so he's not that old. I'm pretty sure he means 28 in terms of dog years, not human years, but do dogs even age the same rate now as they like Adventure Time as they did in the past, and not helping is the fact that Jake isn't really pure dog. I mean, he's at least part alien, so I don't know. I don't know what that is. So I'm decided not to worry about. That's what Jake would have done. Oh, also another pretty funny bit is when Finn first falls down the hole. It's like mid-sentence, and he's like carrying a bunch of stuff, and he just goes, "Woo!" and all his stuff just flies out of his hands. It's a nice it was a nice slapstick moment. Yes. So, the end. I want to talk about the end also. So when they're walking away, and, Seven is enjoying the sunshine, but of course he's been in that hole, and all he's got is darkness and candlelight and walnuts and rain. So there's no rain now, and there's no walnuts, but the no rain thing is more obvious. So he's just feeling the sunshine, and Finn says, "What do you want to do?" And "What do you want to do now that you're out of that hole?" And he says, "I want a big old hot dog." And Finn kind of makes his face like, "Oh." So, I feel like that was another kind of nice subversion where, you'd think that Finn was, in a state of discomfort from being in an area of such, like, opulence, and, Jake was much more comfortable with a guy who didn't have much and was okay with it, like, because he said, like, "I got walnuts, and I got rain, and I guess that's all I need." Like, it have, like, this, canned, like, the simple life is better kind of message, but when he comes out, he says, "I want a big old hot dog." Like, fuck the simple life. I deserve greasy stuff, because, like, when you see him, he's, like, all emaciated, his ribs are showing, and he's got lines on his face when he didn't have, when he get in there. I don't know if that's from age or not eating much, but, yeah. Either way, it's not fun. So, I like how Finn is, like, disgusted with what he wants, because, of course, he was, big ol' hot dog. The reason he gives is, how much kind of gross stuff is in there, but I'd like to think that while he was sitting in that chair, he actually observed them making a hot dog, and it grossed him out. Because you see them making stuff from scratch, like the Food Boys. By the way, I like their design. It's just like a ribeye on top of whatever, of a body made of, like, fruits and vegetables and stuff. It's just, there's a whole bunch of them. Yeah, so the whole existence of the Kingdom of Huge is very odd. Like, there's a huge other chair, but there doesn't seem to be anybody else in it. Like, he sits Finn in it, but Finn is, like, that compared to him. So, like, would Finn have gotten as big as that guy if he'd sat there as long as he did? That's a disturbing thought. It's very fairy tale-ish, though. I do like the atmosphere in this episode that has this whole kind of fairy tale thing. It feels, like, very nostalgic and very innocent. Like, dark, but, fairy tales are dark, so it makes sense. Oh, actually, one thing I did want to say was that, Finn's plan about watching the, like, how he planned it so meticulously, what it reminded me of was the joke way back in Marceline's closet where he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna fold a paper airplane, and I'm gonna throw it, and it's gonna fly downstairs, and it's going to do a barrel roll, and it's gonna make some eggs, and it's gonna eat the eggs," and he planned to do this whole elaborate thing with the paper airplane, and the paper airplane did all of that, and then when it was supposed to get Marceline's attention, it just went straight into the trash can. So when he came up with this big elaborate plan, I thought, like, it wasn't gonna work, like it was gonna cock up immediately, but what it actually looked like it was kind of working for a minute, but what that moment made me realize is that Finn is more observant than we give him credit for. And I don't know if it's because he's been taught by Princess Bubblegum, or if just because he's a hero and he's developed instincts like that, but he actually, like, he can plan stuff out pretty thoroughly. He can predict when things will happen, or maybe he's psychic or something, I don't know. But, anyway, Finn is a man of action. So, that's all the time I have. I don't know if there'll be an episode next week. The schedule is pretty cocked up, but if there is, I'm sure it will be great. Apparently the next episode is an Ice King centered episode, which is always fun. So I'm looking forward to that. Until then, Strong Keeper 19600 signing off.